here's a compilation of all the times Joe Rogan said base things. He argued for universal health care. He argued for free college. He argued for higher minimum wage and this good thing and that. And I would show that compilation and go, see, I don't know what you guys are talking about. But guess what? When you decide I'm going to endorse Donald Trump after he lied to your face relentlessly for the entire podcast, telling brazen lies, then I'm sorry, all the charity is gone, all the sympathy is gone, and I have to come to a different conclusion now. My conclusion of...
You took him from me. He loved me.
No. He despised you. You were an embarrassment to him. Oh. Gonna cry?
Oh, Kyle, it's been 16 years that you've been at this, and I was surprised to hear that you were surprised to hear that Joe Rogan supported Donald Trump. If you'd ever watched a single episode of Joe Rogan where politics is discussed, you could tell that Joe was sympathetic to Trump and the Trump message. The reason Joe didn't publicly support Trump until late in the race was because he was still trying to get Kamala to come on to the podcast.
But she had an opportunity to come here when she was in Texas, and I literally gave them an open invitation. I said, anytime. I said, if she's done at 10 o'clock, we'll come back here at 10 o'clock. I go, I'll do it at 9 in the morning. I'll do it at 10 p.m. I'll do it at midnight. She's up. She wants to, drink a Red Bull, fucking party on. She actually reached out when she found out that he was coming on. So their camp reached out to me. So I said, great. I would love to talk to her. If I go somewhere, then there's going to be other people in the room. And they want to control a lot of things, I'm sure, according to the Brett Breyer interview on Fox. Like, people were waving him off. That's a distraction. People in the room, like, my whole goal with her and with him was just talk. Just have a conversation like a human being. I always considered myself a left-wing person. I never thought I would ever vote right-wing. But then the tides of culture shifted in a very bizarre way. And it just made me, over time, much more aware of what this stuff is really all about.
But perhaps the biggest clue was on July 17th, after the attempted Trump assassination. Joe Rogan came out at the very beginning of the episode, not only praising Trump, but making fun of Kamala.
How about that president? How about that Trump fella? How crazy is this? If there's ever been a real indication that we're in a simulation, it's like this season of USA is the craziest season that's ever existed. There's so many twists and turns, so many plots, so many villains, so many incompetent, bumbling fools that you're like, there's no way that lady's a heartbeat away from the president. There's no way. There's no way someone is not telling her to stop saying that same thing over and over again. What can be unburdened by what has been? Like, she just says it over and over and over again. This isn't real. This is writing. Someone wrote this. It seems like a script.
Now that we have that out of the way, showing that Kyle has completely lost touch with what is going on in the alternative online media space, watch as he tries to blame the new media space, but also tries to blame the voters for being not educated enough.
You've been pretty vocal about how you feel Joe Rogan has contributed to a lot of, I would say, the misinformation surrounding Donald Trump, and as just kind of sold out for, like, what was it, a $200 million contract with Spotify or whatever it is. I would argue that's corporate media, by the way. If you're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars for a corporation, it's difficult to call yourself independent at a certain point.
If you call yourself independent media, and you have a $100 million, $200 million contract from Spotify, or you're taking money from shady billionaires left and right, or you're going to companies that contradict your values, your open express value, I'm sorry, that is no longer, you're not just independent media because you happen to be on the internet.
Here, Kyle confuses the difference between a platform and a publisher. Spotify simply has a exclusivity deal with Joe Rogan. They are not publishing the Joe Rogan experience. And as far as changing your ideology because of who is supporting you, the CEO, Eck, stated that he is for free speech, and so has Joe Rogan. I'm not sure what ideologies or opinions Joe would be changing because of his exclusivity deal with Spotify.
You're not independent media, and you're clearly just a vibes-based voter, right? You cocooned yourself in this right-wing echo chamber where you got right-leaning UFC people and right-leaning comedians, and Dana White, his boss, is super right-wing and loves MAGA. He put himself in this echo chamber. COVID helped to break his brain, and then look at that. He goes full MAGA. And you know what? That makes me look like a jackass, because I was the one going in there, taking him at face value, acting kind, holding his hand and walking him through it like he was a toddler on these topics. And then, wow, in retrospect, would you look at that? You completely flipped. I mean, we were defending him, unfortunately, way too late, right? When people were already on to, I don't know, man, you're saying a little bit more right-wing things here. And we would be like, well, no, look, here's a compilation of all the times Joe Rogan said base things. He argued for universal health care. He argued for free college. He argued for higher minimum wage and this good thing and that. And I would show that compilation and go, see, I don't know what you guys are talking about. But guess what? When you decide I'm going to endorse Donald Trump after he lied to your face relentlessly for the entire podcast, telling brazen lies, then I'm sorry, all the charity is gone, all the sympathy is gone, and I have to come to a different conclusion now. My conclusion of you could hold these people's hands and walk them through it and talk to them like they're reasonable and work it out. It just didn't work.
Dude, who the hell are you? Are you Jesus Christ, you loser?
It just didn't work. And that's why I see a much more bold, aggressive style out of me where I'm like, fuck these people and the horse they rode in on. Because if what I did before didn't work, okay, I got to try a different approach now. So if it's just call these people the fucking frauds they are, well, then guess what? We're going to call them the frauds that they are.
But don't be like hard on yourself in that way. I mean, Bernie Sanders did the same thing where he was trying to go there. And I thought at the point Rogan could be reasoned with in that way. And his audience, it was important to try to communicate with them. Like the thing is like go on all these platforms. It's like why I went on Tim Pool, but I'm going to go there in a way where I'm not going to try to get invited back. Like I'm going to go there and try to.
Right. Adversarial.
Communicate at this point, specifically with explicitly right-wing outlets. You got to go in there and you've got to eat their lunch because the only time that leftists get reinvited to these places is if you validate everything that they say. Right. And then that creates a perverse incentive for those leftist communicators as well, because there's so much more money on that side of the equation. It is awash in money, and we're kind of scraping by on our end because turns out like socialized healthcare and those kinds of policies, not necessarily the kind of thing that corporations want to fund in like a communications medium.
Yeah, and you have to be adversarial. There's no way around it. I mean, I even criticized Bernie. I understand what Bernie's trying to do when he says, I agree with Trump, cap credit card interest rates to 10%. I agree with Doge. We need to cut Pentagon spending. Like, I understand what he's trying to do. And I don't think he's a fraud or a sellout or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is, and we know this, they're full of shit. He's not going to cap credit card interest rates at 10%. They're not going to cut the Pentagon. Trump increased the Pentagon every time when he was president last time. So a better approach is to upfront and directly say, you're full of fucking shit. You're not going to do that. I know you're not going to do that. Oh, you want to prove me wrong? I would love it if you prove me wrong. I would love it if you did that. But you're not going to do that. So don't give them any false credibility. This idea, maybe they'll do it. They're not going to fucking do it. They're not going to do it. And let's stop playing footsie with them. Let's call them out for what they are. So I would even say to Bernie, don't even bother. Don't even bother. We know what MAGA is. We saw them for the last 4 years. If anything, it's going to be worse this time. And I've become a lot harder on them. Not just the people at the top, but also, I mean, again, a lot of the voters. It is a lot of the voters, I have to say. The ones who never abandoned Trump through everything thick and thin, like whatever number you want to say it is, 30% of the country, thereabouts, whatever. I guess he bottomed out at like 30% after January 6th, like the day after they did a poll, he was around 30% support. That number, don't be under any illusions that there's any, with this one weird trick, you can get them to change their mind or flip their vote. Nonsense. These are enemies. Some people are just enemies, and you have to call it like it is. And unfortunately, that's not something that's really being embraced right now. But to be fair, since, we're some of the few who are actually doing it, you really do see a lot of people who are yearning for resistance, who are yearning for the truth, who are now fleeing, like the MSNBC refugees, and looking, at outlets like ours. And I do think there's an opportunity here, not to flip, maybe the populist right will agree with us. No, wrong. They're not. That's over. It's done. Forget it. Liberals, exactly. It's the liberals.
I totally agree with you. And then, of course, like independents or people who are lower propensity voters, but those are the people the Democrats should be targeting anyway, which they did in the last election cycle.
Well, at least they got one thing right at the end. If you haven't already liked the video, please give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.